The X-ray machine flickered. Security Officer Brian Torres froze. 3 metal fragments. Right there in the chest cavity. 2 more in the right shoulder, all embedded deep. He looked up at the man standing in the scanner doorway. Gray jacket. Worn backpack. Calm face. Just another passenger. It was 2:47 p.m. at Richmond International Airport. Torres pressed the button. "Sir, step aside, please. Additional screening." The man nodded and moved to the waiting area. No frustration, no questions, just quiet compliance. Torres flagged his supervisor, Amanda Chen. She arrived fast, badge swinging. "What is it?" Torres pointed at the screen. Chen stared. She had worked airport security for 14 years, seen surgical pins, pacemakers, metal plates. But this was different. The fragments were jagged, irregular, not medical. "Those are bullet fragments," she whispered. "Still in him." Chen walked over to the man. He stood near the belt, hands relaxed at his sides. No nervous energy, no fidgeting. His hair was silver gray, short but not military cut. Deep lines around his eyes, the kind you get from years of hard sun. "Sir, I'm Amanda Chen, security supervisor. We found metal fragments in your scan. Do you have documentation?" His voice was quiet, steady. "No documentation. They're old, from an injury." "How old?" "Long time ago. Decades." Chen exchanged a look with Torres. Decades meant no surgery, no removal. Either too dangerous to operate or he never tried. "I need your ID, sir." He reached into his jacket pocket. Slow and deliberate. Handed her a Virginia driver's license. Name: Garrett Merrick. Born March 1967. Address outside Richmond. Occupation: blank. Chen studied it, then looked back at the X-ray. Something was wrong. Not dangerous wrong, just incomplete. "Mr. Merrick, did you serve in the military?" He hesitated. Less than 2 seconds. But she caught it. "Yes, Navy, a long time ago." Chen pointed to a private room. "Please step inside." "Standard procedure. You're not in trouble." Merrick followed, without protest. Inside, he sat in the metal chair and folded his hands. Chen closed the door, pulled out her radio. "This is Supervisor Chen, Terminal B. I need a file check. Name Garrett Merrick, born March 1967. Priority." The radio crackled. "Running it now." Chen watched him through the glass. He didn't check his phone. Didn't move. Just sat there, staring at nothing, like he'd done this before. 2 minutes passed. The radio came back. "Supervisor Chen, we have a problem." Her chest tightened. "What problem?" "The file is flagged." Red clearance. DOD confirmation required. Department of Defense. His record wasn't just military. It was classified. Chen grabbed the desk phone. Dialed regional. 3 rings. "Regional Security Officer Ramirez." "Amanda Chen, Richmond Terminal B. Passenger with DOD flagged records. Bullet fragments in his body. Need guidance." Pause. "Is he a threat?" "No. Calm. Cooperative. Says the fragments are decades old." Longer pause. "Hold him. Don't release him to anyone. Forwarding this to military liaison. 10 minutes. Line went dead. Chen walked back, opened the door. Merrick looked up. Expression unchanged. "Mr. Merrick, we need more time. Clearance issue with your file. Can I get you water?" "I'm fine." Pause. "I think I know what's happening." Chen stopped. "What do you mean?" "You tried to pull my records." "They're locked." She nodded. "Yes. That's because I'm not supposed to be in the system anymore." Chen felt cold. "Why not?" Merrick leaned back slightly. Eyes went distant. "I was part of a mission. Early 90s. Rescue operation. Hostile territory. The mission went bad. My team got ambushed. 3 died instantly. 2 more during extraction. I got hit but made it to the helicopter. Barely. He paused. Officially, I didn't make it. The report says I died before we reached base. Chen stared. But you're here. I am. But the Navy doesn't know that. Or maybe they do, and never updated the file. Either way, I've been off the grid since. Small town, quiet, no attention. He looked at her directly. Until today. Her radio crackled hard. Chen, this is Ramirez. Someone's coming. Military liaison from Joint Base Langley Eustis. Colonel Raymond Hatcher. ETA 20 minutes. Do not let Merrick leave. Release him only to Hatcher. Copy ? Copy. Chen looked at Merrick. Someone's coming. He nodded. I thought they would. Chen stepped outside, closed the door. Her mind raced. Bullets still in his body. Classified file. Death record that didn't match reality. And now a colonel. What kind of mission leaves a man officially dead for 30 years? She pulled Torres aside. Brian, listen. That man is flagged at the highest level. A colonel is coming in 20 minutes. Until then, nobody talks to him. Nobody goes near that room. Understood? Torres nodded. Eyes wide. What did he do? I don't know, but whatever it was, it's still classified. 20 minutes felt like hours. Chen paced. Other passengers moved through the line. Families. Business travelers. Retirees heading south. None of them knew that 20 feet away sat a man who had been dead on paper for 3 decades. At 3:15 p.m., the terminal doors opened. A man in full dress uniform walked in. Tall, mid-50s, chest covered in ribbons. His face was hard, carved from stone. He scanned the area, spotted Chen's badge, walked straight to her. Supervisor Chen? Yes, sir. Colonel Raymond Hatcher, Joint Expeditionary Base. Where is he? Chen pointed to the screening room. In there. Cooperative. Says he was declared dead in the 90s. Hatcher's jaw tightened. That's correct. Officially, Garrett Merrick died on September 11th, 1994. Killed in action during a classified extraction in Somalia. His body was never recovered. Chen's breath caught. But he's sitting in that room. I know, Hatcher said quietly. And that's a problem. Hatcher walked to the door, paused, opened it. Merrick looked up. For the first time, his calm cracked. Just slightly. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Colonel. Hatcher stepped inside. Closed the door. Through the glass, Chen watched them talking. The room was soundproof. Hatcher's posture was rigid. Merrick's shoulders were straighter now, his hands no longer folded. After 3 minutes, Hatcher opened the door. Gestured to Chen. Supervisor, I need your office. And a secure line. This way. As they walked, Chen glanced back. Merrick was staring at his hands. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Very tired. In the office, Hatcher picked up the phone. Dialed. Someone answered immediately. This is Hatcher. Authentication code Delta 79er Whiskey. Pause. I'm at Richmond International. Ghost protocol situation. Subject is Garrett Merrick, reported KWA. September 1994. He's alive. He's here. His file just got accessed by civilian security. Pause. Hatcher's face darkened. Understood. I'll hold him until you arrive. He hung up. Looked at Chen. Supervisor, forget everything you saw in that X-ray. Forget the file flag. Forget this conversation. Chen hesitated. Sir, with respect, this isn't a request. His voice was steel. What you stumbled into is above your clearance. Above mine, too. People are coming who will handle this. Your job is done. You did it correctly, but now you step back. Chen's stomach twisted. Is he in danger? Hatcher's expression softened. Just barely. No. but he's a complication. A big one. He turned toward the screening room, then stopped, looked back at her one more time. His next words came quiet, almost sad. And complications like this don't usually end quietly. Chen stood in the hallway outside the screening room for 5 minutes after Hatcher walked away. Her hands were still shaking. She had followed protocol, done everything right. But somehow she felt like she had opened something that should have stayed closed. Torres appeared beside her. "Amanda, what do we do now?" She looked at him. His face was pale. He was 26, been on the job 3 years. This was probably the strangest thing he'd ever encountered. "We do our jobs," she said quietly. "We keep processing passengers. And we don't talk about this. Not to anyone." Torres nodded, but his eyes kept drifting back to that closed door. Inside, through the one-way glass, Merrick and Hatcher were still talking. No raised voices, no visible anger, just 2 men sitting across from each other, having what looked like a normal conversation. Except nothing about this was normal. Hatcher's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, stood up, said something to Merrick, then walked out. The door closed behind him with a heavy click. He moved past Chen without looking at her and stepped into an empty gate area nearby. She watched him through the glass partition. He was on the phone again. His body language had changed. Shoulders tense, one hand gripping the back of his neck. Whatever he was hearing, it wasn't good. 2 minutes later, he returned. His face was harder now. All traces of softness gone. "Supervisor Chen, I need you to keep this area clear for the next hour. No passengers within 30 feet of that screening room. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir. But we'll need to redirect traffic through the other checkpoint. That'll cause delays." "Do it." Chen nodded and walked toward the security desk. She made the call. Within minutes, TSA agents were rerouting passengers. Confused travelers asked questions. Chen gave them polite non-answers. Equipment maintenance, routine inspection, nothing to worry about. But she was worried. Very worried. At 3:47 p.m., 2 more men arrived. Both in civilian clothes. Dark suits. No badges visible. But the way they moved told Chen everything. Military. Maybe intelligence. One was older, maybe 60, with white hair cut close to his scalp. The other was younger, 40 at most, with a scar running along his jawline. Hatcher met them at the entrance. They spoke briefly. Too quiet for Chen to hear. Then all 3 walked toward the screening room. The older man paused before entering, turned to Chen. "You're the one who found him?" "Yes, sir." "You did good work today, Supervisor." This could have gone very differently if you hadn't followed protocol. He didn't smile, just nodded once and went inside. The door closed. Through the glass, Chen could see all 3 men now standing around Merrick. He was still seated, still calm. But something had changed in his posture. He sat straighter now, hands flat on the table, like a soldier called to attention. But what really caught her eye was the older man's reaction when he first looked at Merrick. His expression shifted. Just for a second. Shock. Recognition. Maybe even relief. Then it was gone, replaced by the same hard mask the others wore. Torres appeared at her side again. "Amanda, who are those guys?" "I don't know. They don't look like regular military." "No," she agreed. "They don't." Inside the room, the conversation was getting more animated. Not angry, but intense. The younger man with the scar pulled out a tablet, showed something to Merrick. Photos, maybe, or documents. Merrick leaned forward, studied the screen, then sat back, shook his head slowly. The older man said something. Merrick responded. His mouth moved carefully, deliberately, like he was choosing every word with precision. Chen had seen that before. People who had been interrogated, trained to give information in controlled doses, never more than necessary, never less than required. Whatever Merrick had been in the Navy, it wasn't ordinary. Hatcher stepped out of the room, closed the door, walked directly to Chen. "Supervisor, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty." "Of course, sir." "Did Merrick say anything to you before I arrived? Anything about where he's been? Who he's been in contact with?" Chen thought back. "No, sir. He only said he was declared dead in a mission in the early 90s, that he's been living quietly since then, nothing about contacts or locations." Hatcher studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. Did he seem nervous? Scared? No, calm the entire time, like he expected this to happen eventually. Hatcher nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. When you ran his file, did you get a return on his current address?" "Yes. Small town outside Richmond. Black Ridge, I think. We'll need that information." Chen pulled up the file on her terminal, wrote down the address, handed it to Hatcher. He looked at it briefly, then folded the paper and put it in his pocket. "Thank you, Supervisor. You've been very helpful." He walked back toward the room, but before he entered, the older man came out. They spoke for a moment in low voices. The older man's expression was troubled. Hatcher's was unreadable. Then both went back inside. Chen checked her watch. 4:15 p.m., almost an hour and a half since this started. She pulled out her phone, opened the terminal security app, checked passenger flow metrics. Everything looked normal. Except nothing was normal. A passenger with bullets in his body, a death record from 30 years ago, and 3 men in that room who shouldn't exist. Her phone buzzed. A text from her shift supervisor. "Everything okay, Terminal B? Seeing delays." She typed back, "Equipment maintenance. Under control. Lie." But what else could she say? Torres stepped closer. Whispered. "Amanda, look." He pointed at the screening room. Through the glass, the men were standing. The meeting was ending. The older man shook Merrick's hand. Held it. Long moment. Said something. Merrick's expression softened. Then they moved toward the door. Chen straightened. Whatever came next, she needed to be ready. But before the door opened, Hatcher's phone rang. Everything changed. His body went rigid. The others noticed. Stopped. Watched. Hatcher spoke into the phone. Fast. 3 sentences. Ended the call. Turned to the group. Even through soundproof glass, Chen saw it. Tension. Something urgent. Something bad. Hatcher said something. The older man's face darkened. The younger one grabbed his phone. Started typing. Merrick's shoulders tensed. That alertness. That soldier readiness. The door opened. Hatcher's eyes swept the terminal. Scanning. Searching. "Supervisor Chen, I need a favor. A big one." "What do you need, sir?" "Is there a back exit from this terminal? Something that doesn't go through the main concourse?" Chen thought for a moment. "There's a maintenance corridor that leads to the tarmac. Authorized personnel only. We use it for security sweeps. Can you get us there?" "Yes, but I'll need to call ahead. Get clearance." "Do it now. We need to move in the next 5 minutes." Chen picked up her radio. Called maintenance. Explained the situation in vague terms. Got the clearance. Then she turned back to Hatcher. "It's clear. Follow me." The group emerged from the screening room. Merrick in the middle, the 2 civilians flanking him. Hatcher bringing up the rear. They moved quickly but not frantically. Controlled urgency. As they passed, Merrick caught Chen's eye again. He mouthed 2 words. She couldn't hear them, but she read his lips clearly. "Thank you." Then they were past her, moving down the corridor. Chen led them through 2 security doors, past baggage handling, through a narrow hallway that smelled like jet fuel and cleaning chemicals. Finally, they reached the tarmac access door. "This leads directly outside," Chen said. "There's usually a security vehicle out there. You can use it to get to wherever you need to go." Hatcher nodded. "We have transport coming. 2 minutes out." He looked at Chen directly. "You've been extremely professional today, Supervisor. That won't be forgotten." Then he turned to the others, said something quiet. The older man pulled out a phone, made a call. 30 seconds later, Chen heard the sound of rotor blades. A helicopter was approaching. Not military marked, but definitely military grade. It touched down 50 yards from the door. Hatcher opened the access door. The group moved toward the helicopter. Chen watched them go. Merrick climbed in first. Then the 2 civilians. Hatcher was the last to board. Just before he did, he turned back, looked at Chen one more time. And in that moment, she saw something in his expression that she hadn't seen before. Concern. Maybe even fear. Then he was inside. The door closed. The helicopter lifted off. Chen stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the aircraft disappear into the late afternoon sky. Torres appeared beside her. "What just happened?" "I have no idea." "Are we going to get in trouble for this?" Chen thought about it. Probably not. She had followed orders from a military colonel, used proper channels, got clearance for everything. But still, something felt off, like they had been part of something much larger than a simple security screening. She closed the tarmac door, locked it, started walking back toward the terminal. Her shift didn't end for another 2 hours. She had work to do. But as she walked, her mind kept replaying the events of the last 90 minutes. The X-ray image, Merrick's calm demeanor, Hatcher's urgency, those 2 mysterious civilians, and that final phone call that had changed everything. What had Hatcher heard? What new threat had emerged? And most importantly, where were they taking Merrick now? Chen knew she would probably never get answers to those questions. That was how this world worked. Secrets stayed secret. Classified stayed classified. But one thing was certain. Garrett Merrick's story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. At 4:35 p.m., 20 minutes after the helicopter departed, another person entered the terminal. Chen was back at her station when she noticed her. A woman in her mid-40s. Business suit. Blonde hair pulled back tight. She carried a leather briefcase and moved with absolute confidence. No hesitation. No wasted motion. She walked straight to the security checkpoint, showed Chen a badge. Department of Defense, Office of Special Investigations. Her name was Margaret Voss. "I'm looking for Colonel Raymond Hatcher," she said. Her voice was cold, professional. "He's not here, ma'am. He left about 20 minutes ago." Voss's eyes narrowed. "Left? Where did he go?" "I don't have that information. He took a helicopter from the tarmac." "Was he alone?" Chen hesitated. This woman had DOD credentials. But something about her arrival felt wrong. Hatcher had been in such a hurry to leave, almost like he was avoiding something, or someone. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to verify your credentials before I can answer any more questions." Voss's expression hardened. She pulled out her phone, dialed, waited. "This is Voss." Authentication. Delta 77 Echo. She listened. Then her face went pale. "When?" Another pause. "I'm at Richmond International now. Hatcher already left. Yes. With the subject." She ended the call, looked at Chen with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "The man Hatcher took." "Garrett Merrick. Did he say anything to you? Anything at all?" "No, ma'am." "Did he seem distressed?" "Coerced?" "No. He appeared to be cooperating voluntarily." Voss closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, something had changed. The professional mask had cracked, just slightly. And underneath it, Chen saw something unexpected. Emotion. Pain, maybe. Or regret. "How long ago did they leave?" 20 minutes. "And you don't know where they were going?" "No, ma'am. The colonel didn't share that information. Voss stood there for a moment, silent, processing. Then she turned without another word and walked toward the exit. Her stride was different now, less confident, more urgent, almost desperate. Chen watched her go, and as the woman disappeared through the terminal doors, Chen felt that chill return, the one that told her something was very, very wrong. Because if a DOD special investigator was chasing after Hatcher and Merrick, and if she looked that worried when she found out she had missed them, then whatever was happening wasn't over. It was just beginning. The helicopter banked east over the James River. Inside, Merrick sat between the two civilians, his hands resting on his knees. Hatcher sat across from him, his phone pressed to his ear, listening intently. The older man with white hair leaned closer to Merrick, had to speak loudly over the rotor noise. "How are you holding up?" Merrick looked at him, really looked at him. The man's face had aged considerably in 30 years. More lines, more gray, but the eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, concerned. "I'm fine, Director. You don't have to call me that anymore, Garrett. We're past formalities. Old habits." The man smiled slightly. "I suppose they are." He paused. "I'm sorry it happened this way. We had protocols in place to avoid exactly this situation." "Protocols fail," Merrick said quietly. "People make mistakes. I made one. Went through a civilian airport instead of military transport. Didn't think anyone would check. The security officer was just doing her job. She was, and she was good at it." Hatcher ended his call, looked grim. "We have a problem." Margaret Voss arrived at Richmond 10 minutes after we left. The older man's expression darkened. "How did she find out?" "I don't know, but she's asking questions, and she's not going to stop." "She never does," Merrick said softly. Both men looked at him. "You knew she'd come," the older man said. "It wasn't a question. I knew someone would. Eventually. 30 years is a long time to stay invisible. I was surprised it took this long." The helicopter descended toward a small military facility outside Hampton. Not a major base, just a secure location with restricted access. As they landed, Merrick could see 2 black SUVs waiting on the tarmac. The younger man with the scar spoke for the first time since they'd left the airport. "We should move quickly. If Voss is mobilizing resources, she could be here within the hour." They exited the helicopter and moved toward the vehicles. But before they reached them, a car pulled up fast. Too fast. Skidded slightly as it stopped. The door opened, and Margaret Voss stepped out. She must have driven at dangerous speeds to get here so quickly. Her hair was slightly disheveled now, her suit jacket wrinkled. But her eyes were focused. Intense. She walked directly toward the group, ignored Hatcher, ignored the 2 civilians, looked only at Merrick. And when she was 10 feet away, she stopped. Her mouth opened slightly. Her professional composure cracked completely. "Garrett?" she whispered. Merrick stood very still. His face showed nothing, but his hands, still at his sides, trembled slightly. "Hello, Claire." The use of that name made everyone else freeze. Hatcher stepped forward. "Ms. Voss, this is a restricted area. You need to leave." She didn't even look at him. "I spent 30 years thinking you were dead," she said to Merrick. Her voice was shaking now. 30 years. I was at your memorial service. I watched them fold the flag. I accepted it on behalf of your family because you didn't have anyone else." Merrick's expression finally changed. Pain crossed his face. "I know." "You know?" Her voice rose. "You know? Do you have any idea what that did to me? To the rest of the team? We thought we'd lost you. We thought you died in that helicopter trying to save us." "I did die," Merrick said quietly. Just not the way you thought. The older man stepped forward. Ms. Voss, perhaps we should have this conversation inside. She rounded on him. You're Director Halstead. I've read about you. The man who runs the programs that don't officially exist. The man who decides who lives and who dies on paper. Halstead didn't flinch. That's an oversimplification, but essentially accurate. You kept him hidden for 30 years. Why? Because that's what the mission required. What mission could possibly require faking a man's death and keeping him buried for 3 decades? Halstead looked at Merrick. A silent question. Merrick nodded slowly. She deserves to know. They moved inside, into a small briefing room with concrete walls and no windows. Voss sat across from Merrick. The others stood around the edges of the room. And finally, after 30 years, the truth came out. The operation in Somalia wasn't what they told you, Merrick began. His voice was steady now, back to that controlled tone. You thought we were there to extract a downed pilot. That was the cover story. Voss leaned forward. What was the real objective? Intelligence asset, high-level source inside a hostile organization, terrorist networks in East Africa? He paused. The extraction went wrong. How wrong? Hatcher asked. Merrick's jaw tightened. Ambush. First 30 seconds. 3 of our team died. Voss's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled. Daniels, Rodriguez, Mitchell, yes. The word came out rough. Thompson and Chen died getting to the helicopter. I was at all their services, Voss whispered. Every single one. Merrick nodded, couldn't look at her. The asset was wounded. Critical. The helicopter was overloaded. The pilot was hit, bleeding out. Someone had to stay. So you stayed? No. Merrick's voice hardened. The asset tried to stay. Said it was their operation, their responsibility, but I couldn't. He stopped, breathed. I gave the asset my ID, my tags, everything. Told them to get on the helicopter. Voss stood suddenly. Chair scraped back. You gave them your identity? Yes. And then what? You just disappeared? I covered their escape. Disappeared into Mogadishu. Stayed alive long enough to make contact. He looked at Halstead. 3 days later. Halstead picked up the story. The helicopter crashed 15 miles out. Everyone died. When we recovered the bodies, we found someone wearing Garrett's identification. Officially, Garrett Merrick was KYA. Voss stared at him. But you knew the truth. Not immediately. It took us 3 days to figure out what had happened. By then, Garrett had made contact through back channels, told us he was alive. But he also told us something else. The hostile organization had captured someone at the ambush site. They thought they had captured the asset, but they had actually captured a local militia fighter. And they were going to execute him publicly to send a message. So you let them think Garrett was dead, Voss said slowly. To protect the asset. And to protect Garrett. The asset went on to provide intelligence that stopped 3 major terrorist attacks over the next 5 years, Halstead said. Saved hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. But that only worked because the hostile organization thought they'd killed everyone involved in the extraction. If they'd known the asset survived, they would have hunted them down. And Garrett? Stayed in the shadows. Moved through Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, gathering intelligence, sending reports. For 7 years he was one of our most valuable field operatives. Nobody knew he was alive except a handful of people. And that's how it had to stay. Voss turned back to Merrick. 7 years. And then what? Then I came home. Quietly, got a new identity. Not officially, just practically. Settled in a small town. Tried to live a normal life. For 23 years. Yes. Why didn't you contact me? Her voice broke on that question. Why didn't you let me know you were alive? Merrick's composure finally shattered. Because you deserved better than a ghost, Claire. You deserved someone who could actually exist. Someone with a real name. A real life. I couldn't give you that. I was dead on paper, dead to the world, and I couldn't ask you to live with that. Tears were running down her face now. That wasn't your choice to make. I know, but it was the only choice I had. Hatcher's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face went white. We have a bigger problem. Everyone looked at him. The hostile organization from 1994. They're not as defunct as we thought. We've been tracking chatter for the last 6 months. Someone's been asking questions about the Somalia operation, digging into old records, and 3 hours ago they identified Garrett. They know he's alive, and they're coming for him. Halstead stood immediately. How much time do we have? Unknown. But they have operatives in the U.S. Could be days. Could be hours. Voss wiped her eyes. Stood up. Her professional mask was back now. Then we need to move him. Secure location. Full protection detail. Agreed, Halstead said. He looked at Merrick. I'm sorry, Garrett. You thought you were done, but it seems the past isn't finished with you yet. Merrick stood, and for the first time since this entire situation began, he smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. Director, I've been living borrowed time for 30 years. If they want to come for me, let them come. But they should know something. What's that? I'm not the same person I was in 1994. I've had 3 decades to think about what happened. To train. To prepare. If they're coming, they'd better bring everyone they have, because I'm not running anymore. Voss looked at him. Really looked at him. And in that moment, something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or forgiveness. Or just the recognition that despite everything, despite 30 years, and all the lies and all the pain, some connections never really break. I'm not letting you face this alone, she said. Claire, you don't have to. I'm not asking permission, Garrett. I'm telling you. You disappeared once. You're not disappearing again. Not while I'm still breathing. Halstead looked between them, then nodded. All right. We do this together, but we do it smart. Hatcher, coordinate with base security. I want a full threat assessment within the hour. Voss, you're officially assigned to this case. Use whatever resources you need. And Garrett. He paused. It's good to have you back. Officially? Merrick nodded. It's good to be back. Even if the circumstances are terrible. They moved toward the door, but before they left, Voss stopped, turned to Merrick. One more thing. What? When this is over? When we've dealt with this threat and everything calms down, we're having a conversation, a real one, about everything that happened, everything you did, everything you felt. No more secrets. No more shadows. Agreed? Merrick looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. Held it briefly. Agreed! As they walked out into the fading sunlight, Merrick glanced back at the helicopter that had brought him here. Just this morning, he'd been a ghost. A man living quietly in a small town, trying to forget the past. Now he was standing in the middle of a military facility, surrounded by people who knew his secrets, facing a threat from an enemy he'd thought was long gone. But he wasn't alone anymore. And somehow, despite everything, that made all the difference. Halstead pulled him aside as the others moved toward the vehicles. Garrett, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Of course, when you made that choice in Somalia, when you gave up your identity to save the asset, did you ever regret it? Merrick thought about it. About 30 years of living in the shadows, 30 years of being no one, 30 years of watching the world move on without him. Every single day, he said quietly. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Halstead nodded. That's what I thought. That's what makes you different, Garrett. That's what makes you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who made a choice. Sometimes that's the same thing. They walked toward the vehicles together. Behind them, the sun was setting over Virginia, casting long shadows across the tarmac. And in those shadows, a man who had been dead for 30 years was finally, truly alive again. Whatever came next, whatever threats emerged from his past, Garrett Merrick would face them. Not as a ghost, not as a shadow, but as himself. And that, after 3 decades, was more than enough.